Today is Sunday, August 12th, 2018, and this is Celtics Beat here on CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audio-video coverage of your Boston Celtics. Episode 275, featuring Celtics blog Alex Kungu, is brought to you by Nutrafol. Get the first month of your subscription for $10 today by going to Nutrafol.com and using the promo code Celtics at checkout. That's Nutrafol.com. Promo code Celtics at checkout. Welcome inside another edition of Celtics Beat here on CLNS Media. Evan Valenti filling in for Adam Kaufman on vacation this week. We'll be back next week. So don't worry, Adam will be back. But make sure you subscribe in the meantime to Celtics Beat on iTunes and on Stitcher. Make sure you give us a review. Constructive criticism is always welcome. We love that stuff. Make sure you get at us. You can also follow Adam on Twitter at Adam M. Kaufman. Myself is my namesake, Evan Valenti, EvanValenti. And make sure you subscribe to CLNS Media on YouTube, okay? Now, with that being said, I want to welcome in this week's guest. He is one of my favorite dudes to read on Celtics blog. He is one of everybody's favorite Twitter trolls sometimes. He gets everybody jacked up. Alex Kungu from Celtics blog. Alex, I got to be honest with you, I got to start here. Who has had a more well-traveled summer, you or Jaylen Brown?
That's a tough one, but I'm going to have to go Jaylen because me and him are in a little bit of different tax brackets, so I think he was living his life a little bit more enjoyable than I was, especially in Paris. So I'll give it to Jaylen, but it's close. It's definitely close.
Where'd you go?
I went on a European cruise that took me from Barcelona to France to Italy, and then there was one more country.
Oh, come
France, Italy, Spain.
There you go.
But I started with Barcelona. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And I stayed a couple days in Barcelona. I stayed a couple days in Paris. Very great time. One of the few times I've been out of the country, so I really enjoyed it.
Give me your favorite spot out of Barcelona, Paris, all the places you went.
Barcelona, there was this beach that apparently a lot of the NBA players go to. Like if you see, I think Boogie was just there. This summer, James Harden has been there. It's like this little beach where it's you can rent bikes and you just travel, you can just ride all around. It's miles long, and there's there's a bunch of people selling fake stuff, jerseys and all that. There's a bunch of restaurants. You get some really good paella and tapas. Very good ocean view. There's aquariums. It's a really fun place, but I like Barcelona a lot.
Yeah, everybody I talk to about Barcelona is obsessed with Barcelona and never wants to leave Barcelona ever.
It's an amazing place. It's a very good vibe.
Yeah, my brother and I might be planning a trip this upcoming year, 2019, where Spain's on the list. Neither of us have been to Spain. My brother's girlfriend speaks Spanish, so we'll get around a little bit. But I might be coming to you for some tips on that stuff, just because, it's always, I always talk to some people from out of the country, and a buddy of mine's from Ireland. And so he came to my hometown. We showed him a good time. We took him around not the touristy spots, all the spots you'd want to go to, even if you were a tourist. I need that type of experience where, not TripAdvisor, not anything like that. I need the full authentic experience. So I might be coming your way soon, Kungu, for some advice on that stuff.
Oh, I'm all for it.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Jaylen, though, I want to keep this somewhat Celtic-centric. Speaking of Jaylen, I cannot wait to see what he does year 3. I'm after the leap he took year 1 to year 2, where he went from 5 points a game to 14, then was the second leading scorer on the team in the playoffs. I'm really jacked up to see what he does in year 3. I might be actually the most excited about it. Everybody on the team might be most excited about Jaylen Brown watching him next year. And that's kind of hard for me to say because, you're going to have Kyrie in year 2, right, under Brad Stevens. That's going to be a lot of fun. Hayward for longer than 5 minutes, hopefully, knock on wood, right? Tatum in year 2 is fascinating. For you, Alex, what player are you most excited to watch next year, 2018, 2019?
So I think the most excited player, and it's going to sound like it's off the beaten path. I'm trying to do something different, but it's really how I feel. I'm really interested to watch Brad Wanamaker.
Come on, man. Come on, bro.
I'm telling you, I think because I watched a lot of him when the Celtics officially signed him in this summer sometime. And I watched a lot of the Fenerbahce tape, and I saw just like a lot of good things from him. Just his size, he's almost like basically the same size as Smart. He defends like a bulldog, like probably 3 to 4 positions in the NBA. He can shoot. He can create out of the pick and roll. He's a guy who had to, learn the game overseas, and now he's back. And I just really want to see how he looks in all of this. And the way, just the way they're talking about like the regular season, guys probably going to be being rested throughout the year and stuff like that. He's going to get a lot of opportunity, and I'm just really interested to kind of like see how he is, because he just looks like someone that could be like a surprise that a lot of us don't really realize, kind of like how Daniel Tice was last year.
There we go. I think, look, Wanamaker I'm excited about, don't get me wrong. Like I think he's an improvement over Shane Larkin, no question. He's a bigger body. I remember him on Pitt, and those Jamie Dixon teams were, they weren't the most talented teams in the Big East, but they won a lot of games because they played really hard. They defended the crap out of the ball. They were smart teams in terms of ball movement, but they were really good defensively, which fits a lot of the molds of what Brad Stevens looks for and what Danny looks for when they bring guys in to this type of culture. Do you have already some of the things that they already want? I mean, he does have a lot of those things. He's a great three-point shooter. From what I saw of the limited stuff that I saw of him overseas, but I mean, I sort of get that, but I mean, between Jalen, I mean, I am fascinated to see what Kyrie looks like another year comfortable in Stevens' system. We saw what happened with Isaiah Thomas going from, his first year, the first half year, then the first year, then that last year where he was literally on, a top 5 MVP candidate. I wonder if Kyrie has that same sort of jump in him now that he's got a little bit more comfortable in Brad's system. And that, to me, could really make or break the ceiling of this team. I know Tatum is unbelievable, and we're all ready to see what he looks like. I know Jalen's, for me, really exciting, and Gordon, getting him back, hopefully he looks great. But, like, Kyrie kind of does a couple of things that nobody else on the Seas can do. And if he can kind of open up, because that was the one thing you pointed this out, I think, last year. You're like, you guys that are criticizing Kyrie, they doesn't have that kick-out pass. He does have it. He just doesn't use it that often. And we saw a lot of him moving the ball last year. Like, I think if he's even a little bit more committed to ball movement, because this team has a lot more playmakers, a lot more shooters on it, that to help him out, I think the ceiling offensively for this team is, like, through the roof, Alex.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think you raised a really good point, Kyrie, because to me, I've called him, like, our ceiling raiser, kind of like the way Steph is for Golden State, where maybe you don't necessarily need him to win, like, your 50 games in the regular season. But when it comes down to the playoff time, it comes down to the Game 7, to the road games where you can put the series away, it's really great to have a guy like him who's able to take the game to the next level offensively. So now he's starting to enter into, like, the real years of his prime between, like, 26 to 32. And this is a time where you should see kind of, like, him kind of, like, master his specific craft to, like, the best of his abilities. And now he's going to be put in a perfect situation to do that, because not only, like you said, we have, like, Jalen and Jason. Now you have a guy like Gordon Hayward who can also kind of be, like, a secondary playmaker. Al Horford could be a secondary playmaker for him. So now he kind of has, like, more, like, freedom in the offense to not necessarily just, like, feel like he has to be the one to get everyone involved, or he has to be the one to score. And I think a lot of times last year what you saw is that, like, he had to really, like, it took him a while to, like, balance that. Like, okay, it's all on me to help people score now. Now it's all on me to be the scorer now. And I think if Gordon and some of those other young guys taking leaps, he doesn't have to be like that anymore. He doesn't have to think the game in those type of terms. He can just kind of go out, be in the system, be as aggressive as he wants. And I'm really excited to see, like, what he could do fully healthy.
What I like already, too, is some of the talk you've heard from, you don't hear a lot from guys in the offseason, which is great. They need to get away from the game. But what really makes me excited is it seems like that same excitement that happened last year where, and everybody's talked about it, how this Celtics team last year came in training camp and had an outrageously good training camp. And when they came into the preseason, I know you can't take a lot from watching preseason basketball, but when I went to that first game at the Mullins Center at UMass, and you saw the 5 on the floor for the first time, and it was like, wow, these guys are already really good. And then as they progressed through the preseason, you saw them they blew out Charlotte, and I remember looking at it and be like, I think this team's already really, really excellent. It seems like that general overall excitement is back again. Like, I feel like you've heard from certain guys. I think Baines came out and said it first, that guys are already itching to get back into the gym. And I love how you're seeing, like the clip that dropped Saturday of Terry Rozier going at John Wall one-on-one. Like, there's guys working on their game all the time. And when it comes down to that kind of aspect, that's something that the Celtics have in every aspect of their locker room, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's Hayward, working out with Drew Hanlon, or whether it's, Terry Rozier hanging out, or you have, literally every single player on the team you've seen in some sort of capacity put some sort of video out there that's them working on their game, and I love seeing that stuff.
Everyone except for Al Horford, but we're not gonna say nothing on Big Al because we know he's working.
Well, yeah. But the thing is, I want to get to this. I was kind of saving it, but since you kind of brought us here, let's go to it. You wrote an article about Al Horford this week that got a lot of attention, and maybe a lot of negative attention. I don't know. Did you get a lot of flack for that in your DMs and your mentions?
Oh yeah, the Rain and Jays crew came at me with full force. Every fan came at me. The comment sections were off the roof. It was maybe some of the most backlash I've ever received from any story that I've ever written. It was definitely a new experience for sure. So
walk us through, because I actually like this. I like where your head's at. I'm going to be one of the few guys that's like, guys, I think he's got a point. Walk us through this. Walk us through Al Horford potentially coming off the bench here for Brad Stevens. That was the title of the article, but it wasn't really all about that. But lead us through this.
Okay, so the initial thing started off a conversation that had been going on with Ryan Bernardoni, aka Danger Cart, where he made this comment that maybe the easiest thing for the Celtics would be is Al Horford to come off the bench, and that was during the year last year, and I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't know about that. That sounds crazy. But then now we kind of progress to the summer, and you start thinking about all these lineups, and you're like, okay, so we all kind of agree Kyrie, Jalen, Tatum, Hayward and Horford are the starters. We're okay with that. That's the lineup we all want to see. That's our lineup we all want. And for the most part, I think those should be our everyday starters. But during the regular season, during the grind, there's going to be matchups against the Joel Embiids, the Andre Drummonds, the Rudy Goberts, the Marcus Gasols, so on and so forth. Basically like the featured bigs, right? And during those times, it's like, do you want Al Horford to play the 5 in those matchups in the regular season? Do you want him to start banging with these guys now when we've already heard from last year, one of their biggest things is preserving him so that he can actually do that in the playoffs? So obviously you're not going to make him the full-time 6th man because of that, which is something that I think a lot of people lost. They thought I was saying that he should be the full-time 6th man. What I was actually saying was, wouldn't it be interesting if maybe for those specific matchups only in the regular season, maybe you start Baines and let him come off the bench? And the reason I said that was because even though a lot of people point to, just bring Jalen off the bench, just bring Tatum off the bench, just bring Hayward, which that's ridiculous, because to me, Jalen and Tatum are both young guys trying to prove themselves in the league. And yes, maybe they have shown good professionalism and they have shown that they're about the bigger picture, but they're still kids and they're still guys that need to prove themselves. And bringing them off the bench after the year they just had isn't what you want to do. It could, no matter what they say to the media, those are still kids, and I just don't trust that any of them would take that nicely. And it's the same thing with Gordon Hayward, who just missed a whole year. Now he's coming back. He's arguably our most complete player on the team. You're not going to tell him to come off the bench. Now you go to Al Horford, because we don't have to discuss Kyrie because that's a different position altogether. So now you go to Al Horford. He's a big man. He's 33 now, getting older. He probably won't mind the rest. He already said he doesn't like playing the 5. So if you approached him and just said, hey, man, we're playing Embiid tonight. How about we just start Baines and we'll bring you in after the first 6-7 minutes after the first stint, and then we just go from there. I don't think he'd object. This is not something that he feels like he needs to prove himself in the league. The man has made over $150 million in this league. He's been to multiple All-Star games. He's Defensive Player of the Year candidate, All-NBA guy. This is a guy who's proven in the league. So it's not like he feels like he has anything to prove. And at this stage for him, it's just all about winning. So my whole thing was, okay, and if we're all about preserving him, why not? Why not try something out like that? And then from there, that's when, people couldn't get past the headline. And
right.
Yeah.
And it's more about minutes restriction than anything else. And that's why I kind of like the idea of it. I think in terms of saving guys on the team, in terms of minutes, I do think Al Horford is the number one guy you think of in that capacity, whether it's, bringing him off the bench or limiting his minutes anyway. Because look, when it comes down to it, I think in terms of like starting, quote unquote, I think their starting lineup will change depending on who the opponent is. Like I think they'll start different guys against different teams just because it gives them an advantage. That's one of the beautiful things about the way how the Celtics are set up. They have so many different guys that can throw at you in different lineups that give them different looks to combat different teams, which is excellent. But when it comes down to trying to limit the minutes of Al Horford, this is a way you can do it. And Brad is already starting to do this. He started doing it last year in terms of limiting minutes. The only player that was in the top 50 of minutes averaged per game was Kyrie Irving. He was the only guy that did that, and I think towards the end of the year, he probably wouldn't have played as much anyway just because they want to rest him, make sure he's ready to go for the playoffs. This is something that Greg Popovich was doing years ago, and I think Brad, in his conversations with Pop, has picked this up. Look, Brad, when it comes down to you need to rest guys, don't worry about winning a ton of games in the regular season. Don't worry about winning 73 like the Warriors did. You want to make sure you're right for the playoffs and you don't get beat in the playoffs. And so I think Brad has that in mind, and I think this team is the best version that you could possibly have to try and limit Al's minutes. Like you mentioned, bringing Baines off the bench. You can bring Tice off the bench to spell both Baines and Al Horford. We'll see what Robert Williams has as he progresses throughout the regular season. Obviously, we're not going to have too high hopes for him because we haven't really seen him, but yet there's another body for them to do that with. They can even go small. They can even put a guy like Marcus Morris in the 5 and survive for a while. I think the whole idea of bringing Horford off the bench is a good one just in certain situations, just to give him a little breather, whatever. But the whole idea and premise, I think, behind the article is finding ways to limit Al and making sure he's fresh because at the end of the year, he's really important. And if he's not on the floor, this team does struggle a little bit in terms of, it won't as much as it did last year because they have, obviously they'll have, Kyrie and Gordon back, but, and hopefully back. But their spacing takes a hit when he's not on the floor. And Baines having that three-pointer is big. But, out of all the things that have come at you, I think people are just misinterpreting what your idea is. And I think if you explain it to them that way, everybody would be on board with that. I don't see how people don't see through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I just think the shock from just hearing Max Player coming off the bench is a lot. And then, of course, with Celtics Nation and stuff like that, we're in a constant battle between trying to people questioning Al Horford's status as an all-star, as a star.
Are we not past that now? I thought we got past that last year. I think we really did.
I don't know. I hope so because, you would think after the year Al Horford had, people would just know, at this stage it's understood. But I guess when you just see a headline like that, maybe it brings back those memories. People are sleeping on him again, which, if anyone knows me, they know that's not the case at all.
Yeah. I think even Lou Merloni at one point last year admitted defeat and was like, nah, I think this Al Horford guy is pretty good. And, I was like, once Lou changed his mind, I think everybody was on board because he's just the way he moves the ball for a guy that size. There's nobody else that really does what Al does. And it seemed like last year was a big year for everybody get on the Al Horford hype train because the people that criticize him aren't really watching the game. The whole, he doesn't get 12 rebounds for his, that still bugs me to this day that people had that take because it's not really what he does. And it's not what they need him to do. They need him to move the ball offensively. The fact that he can switch almost 1 through 5 is incredible, and only a couple of guys can do that, like Rudy Gobert and Clint Capella. There are a few guys out there that can actually really truthfully do that better than Al Horford can. Again, you mentioned a defensive player of the year, shoots 40% from three-point range. I think he's either first or second in the league in terms of centers, in terms of assists per game. I think the only guy that had better him was Jokic, I think out in Denver. But he just does so many things to them. He's their Swiss Army knife, and he really does make them go. But, when it comes down to limiting his minutes, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. Do you think that the Celtics have, a problem with minutes? Or is this just, one of these problems that's, first world problems where we're all complaining about something that's not really going to be an issue? It's just trying to figure out who fits the best on a certain given day. Maybe Morris needs to play more. Because I think that just the idea of having too much talent, I think, is a little ridiculous.
If you think this team has too much talent, then what you're probably saying is that they're the best team in the NBA, and I don't think anyone is saying that they're better than the Warriors yet, even if you think they're there's some type of like even competition. So I do think that because of our coach and because of how we've seen him use rotations, it might not be as big of a problem. Like if we were being coached by Coach Tibbs, who only use like 8 or 9 people, then having 10 to 12 guys who can like actually play becomes an issue. But because Stevens is already a guy like we talked about, he puts a premium on resting guys, preserving guys throughout the regular season, throwing a lot of bodies out on the court, mixing and matching a whole bunch of different lineups. I think from there, and just the fact that there's so many games and you're not going to want you'll probably have the option to not play some people every night. Like you might sit Al, just straight up sit him for a night or two. You might not let someone like Kyrie play every single back-to-back. Maybe Hayward, you give him a rest off his ankle a little bit. Like you do stuff like that throughout the year. And I think during the regular season, at least, it could all be good. And if guys are getting minutes, guys are getting fluctuating roles, and you're winning at a high level, like that's gonna keep the chemistry at bay. Now in the playoffs, people might get a little frustrated when he's only playing his top 8, but at that stage, like no one's gonna say anything at that stage. Like the other part of this is like you are kind of banking on guys to be like professionals. Like these are all NBA players, they're all making millions of dollars. They're expected to show up and play and be used how the team is using them. So to a certain extent, it could possibly come down to just like, okay, I know you're not in a role that you like, but you need to be a professional now because this is just like our best chance of winning. And I just don't see anyone maybe outside of Marcus Morris who would potentially like cause a stir. But even on Marcus Morris's credit, like he's been on bad teams like Denver and Phoenix, and you don't hear much about him like complaining over minutes, complaining over roles, complaining over shots. And I think sometimes just his off the court activities kind of give him a worse reputation than he really is. Well, that in his play style. But overall, like I just don't see it as like it being some like prevailing theme of the year, like a lot of people seem to believe it is.
Guys are going to get time off. Guys are going to get minutes restricted, and that's a good thing. And like you look at last year, like I look at that West Coast trip late in the year where they played out in Portland and beat a Portland team with like a skeleton crew. Then they went to Utah and beat that team with a skeleton crew. Like that was actually, I think, really valuable for a couple of guys. Like it's Jaylen Brown with the game-winning shot. Like that was a big moment for him. I think Shemi Ojeleye, picked up some confidence on that West Coast trip to the point where he's guarding Giannis in the playoffs and doing about as good of a job as you could possibly do on Giannis if you're a second-round rookie, who's built like Adonis, essentially. Like you have these resting guys and giving other guys opportunity is only going to pay dividends for Boston in the long run because you never know. Like, the way Brad does it, and I love the phrase he uses. Simmons likes to claim he uses it, but I've heard more of this from Brad than from Bill Simmons. It's called shake the snow globe. And every once in a while, Brad will throw out a funky lineup that doesn't make any sense just to change the energy level of the team, to get certain guys engaged again. You know what I mean? Like, and you'll see Boston go on certain runs to the point where you're like, holy crap, I can't believe this worked. He'll go to that. Remember the zone at the end of the year where they would stifle teams with zone? Like that game in Utah where Ricky Rubio was like 2 of 14, couldn't hit a jump shot. The Utah Jazz couldn't score for like the last 4 minutes of the game because Boston ran that 2-3 zone and just changed things up. That diamond and one last year was something they used a lot out of bounds plays at the end of the game. And, of course, Rozier with the tip and the dunk at the end of the Indiana game to steal that one. Like those moments where you have guys like a Rozier or like a Brown or like whoever step up at the end of the game in the middle of the regular season only does good things for you later on when you ask them to do something much more important against a team like, maybe Toronto in the playoffs or Philadelphia or, heaven forbid, Golden State in the NBA Finals. Like you're going to need, especially to beat Golden State. And even if DeMarcus isn't healthy, right, you're going to need literally everybody to beat Golden State. They are they've been to 3 of the past 4 NBA finals. They've won 3 of the past 4 NBA finals. They've gone to 4 straight. They have 3 of the best shooters of all time on it. Plus, a defensive unicorn. Plus a guy at 7 feet tall who shoots threes at a ridiculous clip. They have all this talent. You're going to need everybody on the team to be available, ready, and understand what their role is as soon as they hit on the floor, as soon as playoff time comes. And your idea of resting Allen, resting this guy here, and resting this guy here is a good one. I think it's crazy that people gave you flack for it.
Quick break from Alex to tell you today's show is brought to you by Nutrafol. Boys and girls, I understand hair loss can be a problem for some of you, and there are different factors in why you lose your hair. It's not just genetics, stress, DHT levels, diet, and environmental toxins can compromise your hair health. And with the amount of products in the market right now, it can be very confusing which product to pick. That's why you need to turn to Nutrafol. Nutrafol is not some magic pill. It's actually 100% drug-free. It's made of clinically tested, medical-grade botanical ingredients. Scientists and researchers have worked for years trying to find a way to improve hair from within. It's like a plant. You can feed it, you can water it all you want, but if the soil is bad, then the plant won't thrive. There aren't any bad side effects. No compromise to overall wellness. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, sign up today. Get your first month of your subscription for only $10 today by going to Nutrafol.com and using the promo code Celtics at checkout. That's Nutrafol.com with the promo code Celtics to get the first month of your subscription for only $10. Let's get back to Alex.
Before we get out of here, Alex, you just got a new gig with, the Step In or the Step Back, one of those two?
Yeah, the Step In.
Yeah. So you're covering college now, doing some draft stuff, right?
Yeah.
Have you had to dive into it at all?
Have I? Yeah, so basically, just to go over my role, the Step In does kind of consider itself an NBA site, even though we mostly covered the draft. So, I mean, it's different. So my first piece came out last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started on Cam Reddish, who I'm a little bit familiar with because he's from Norristown, PA, and I live in PA. I've seen him a couple of times, so I want to start off with someone who I knew, and then from now until maybe throughout the year, I'm just going to be doing basically profiles on prospects. So This is a good year, especially for the Celtics, who could have up to 4 first-round picks. Mm-hmm. Very big to get yourself familiar with the draft. We have a lot of smart people on the site. A lot of people who go very in depth with the stuff.
You have Cole Zwicker, who's on every podcast ever.
Exactly. So yeah, if you know him, Sam Vecini, they go deep, and I'm learning a lot as I travel through this new level of basketball.
Right. So you mentioned the C's, how they have 4 first-round picks potentially coming their way in the draft, and the one obviously that everybody wants to talk about is the Kings pick and could be as high as number 2. Give me your favorite guy, because I think we all know R.J. Barrett's going 1 at this point. It could change. Obviously, things happen, but if it goes as everybody thinks it's going to go, R.J. Barrett's going to go number 1. And if that second pick, the Kings, comes in at number 2, who's the guy, the early front runner for you as your favorite guy? For me, I love Romeo Langford. I have just a soft spot for guys like that. I just think he's really, really interesting as a wing player. But who do you have in that top tier spot for number 2?
Yeah, so if the pick is number 2, it's difficult because I think I have an opinion different from everyone. I think most people at this stage will tell you Nasir Little, who's a very good wing from UNC,
right?
Yep, UNC guy, very good. Personally, though, I would go with Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish is maybe my favorite prospect. And I would take him number 1 over R.J. Barrett. And
really?
That's an opinion you won't hear anywhere else. I completely understand. A lot of it comes from just believing in him. I think he's the best player in the draft, and I don't think we've ever seen him go 100% ever.
Okay.
Period. On the court. But that's also kind of his biggest weakness. Will he ever turn that switch on and go? Because he's a 6'8" guy, 7'1" wingspan, can legitimately run the point position. He can shoot off the catch or off the dribble, can get to the rim, can dunk through people. He has the length theoretically to defend 4 positions, and it's just he's kind of the modern NBA wing that you want. And just the fact of being that big and being able to run an offense on your own already and be able to self-create, it's just a tantalizing skill set to have. So I would take him at number 2, but, that's not the consensus. Just to, at all. Like, I think a lot of people would be more comfortable taking Nasir Little because he's a little bit more easier to project, and there's no questions about his motor.
The one thing that's hurting you, I think, in this argument is the whole because you're gonna have R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, and Zion Williamson all on Duke. So I think because this has hurt Kentucky in the past, and I think it's gonna start hurting Duke a little bit here in terms of like overall high end talent and where they go in the draft. But like you're not gonna see like that's my problem with it when all these guys, all these 5-stars end up teaming up somewhere is like you don't get to totally see everything that everybody's capable of. Like we didn't know that Devin Booker could do what he's now capable of when he's at Kentucky. Now the new version, like Jason Tatum, is a version of this. Like Tatum was hurt a little bit and didn't show us everything that he could do, and then he gets to the Celtics and everybody's like, "Holy shit! What is going on here? This is unbelievable." Kevin Knox is the next version of this with the Knicks. Like not a lot of people thought he would be where he is right until like a couple weeks up at the draft, where everybody started loving Kevin Knox. Not a lot of people saw this coming. I mean, it's only, again, Summer League stuff, but he looked very impressive in Summer League. I think the only thing – I mean, I like your reasoning. Don't get me wrong. I like where you're at, but I just have a problem with maybe being on a stacked Duke team where he doesn't get to totally show up. Like Wendell Carter's another version of this. Everybody talks about Marvin Bagley, right, where Wendell Carter comes out and looks like just an absolute perfect fit for a lot of teams in the modern NBA. It looks like a 5 that you would want to have right now in the NBA. Like maybe not as – maybe when you look back at it, maybe Bagley's the guy you didn't want and you wanted Carter, and Carter should have gone too. You know what I'm getting at? You see what I'm getting at here?
Oh yeah, no, and you raise a very good point. Like college is not I say this jokingly, but like it's kind of true. It's a complete different sport from the NBA. It's very much coach oriented, and a lot of it comes down to like coaches just saying, "Okay, you're going to be this role." It's still very much like you're the point guard, you're the shooting guard, you're our scorer, you're our rebounder, like that. And that does limit guys, like you said, like especially with Wendell, you saw with Tatum. And I think there's a real possibility that it could, because they have another big-time recruit, Trey Jones, brother Tyus Jones, also on team as their star point guard. It's very possible that it's just like, he's our point guard, RJ Barrett's our shooting guard, you're our wing. And they have him playing off ball, and we don't see anything or very little of his lead guard potential. But what I will say with a guy like Cam Reddish is what I think most of us want to see that are kind of high on him or are looking for him at the NBA prospect is just see how he competes. Like, is he playing hard defensively? Is he staying engaged in the game throughout? Because you already kind of know the skills are there. It's just about him showing that, like, he can commit to a system. And I think it could help him in some ways, because if you're committing that hard to a system where maybe it's not being played the way you want to, it shows NBA teams that, hey, you can try hard, and you can try hard when things aren't going your way. So I think even if that does happen for Cam, it could still be an opportunity for him to prove things to NBA scouts.
That's Alex Kungu from Celtics blog and newly of the Stepien. Alex, thanks for the time today, man. Appreciate it. Can't we talk to you soon? Have a great rest of your summer, buddy, and we look forward to seeing what you put out on both websites, man, okay?
Hey, thanks for having me. No problem.
And that will do it of this episode of Celtics Beat here on CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audio-video coverage of your Boston Celtics. Evan Valenti signing off. Adam Kaufman back in next week. So make sure you stay tuned. Best way to stay tuned is to subscribe to this show. Again, on iTunes, on Stitcher, subscribe to the show. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review if you like. We love constructive feedback from you guys. Get your thoughts heard in that section. Maybe you ask a question or two. We'll get to it on another episode of Celtics Beat. A couple of thank yous to hand out here. Nick Gelso, of course, our CEO of the company. My executive producer, Larry H. Russell. Of course, my man, Adam Kaufman, who had a well-deserved vacation, coming back next week to talk to you guys. And I want to thank you guys. You guys are the greatest audience of all time. I love you guys so much. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Thanks to Alex Kungu. We'll see you guys next week.